So today we're going to be talking about parametric families. We're going to be talking about how to constrain them, how to organize them, best practices for that. And I always use the analogy of bones, muscle, skin. I think it's always good for analogies to help with our memory and help us remember certain things. So we're going to be talking about what the bones are, what the muscles are, what the skin is, and then also best practices when you're building your Revit families. And we're also going to have some interaction, so hopefully this is good as we progress. So let's see. Yes, there we go. So who we are, just in case some of you guys don't know, we are Evolve Lab, a full-service computational design and BIM consulting firm. Basically what that means is we're supporting architects, engineers, contractors, owners, helping out with 3D coordination, family building, template building, that type of stuff. A little bit about me. I am co-founder for Evolve Lab. Speak at a lot of the conferences, whether it's Autodesk University or the BIM workshops, design symposiums, things like that. But I want to know a little bit about you guys. I want you guys to tell me what firm you are with. Who are you and what firm are you with? Go ahead and populate that up in your chat box there. We have Ginsler, Studio NYL, Thompson Electric, Davis, 359 Design. Welcome, guys. San Diego. Clark Anderson, welcome. Autodesk, there's Mr. Tobias. Good to have you, sir. Jamie Lewis, Valley Pointer. Charles with FDG. Emily with Mosaic. Welcome, Emily. Adriana. This is good. All right. Cool. Welcome, guys. This is good. It's good to know where you guys are from. So, yeah, feel free to continue the chats going here. And we're going to go ahead and jump right in. All right. So basically learning objectives today are going to be to create parametric relationships with families, utilizing formulas to drive and control those families, using nested families, modeling challenges, if there are modeling challenges when working in Revit, and then also creating shared parameters for tagging purposes. So the analogy I use of bones, muscle, skin basically is the idea of, say, like your finger, okay? You have a bone, and in there you have muscle, and then you actually have your skin, right, your form. And so what that does is it moves your finger parametrically, if you will, makes it dynamic. And so that's kind of the analogy of families. What you have is you have these reference planes, which is your bones. You have the parameters, which are your muscles, and then you have the skin, is the form. And so when I first started building my own Revit families, the thing I always did incorrectly was I would try to build the form first. I was always wanted that quick turnaround, the ambition of trying to just model something. And I want to say usually when you're working in a Revit family, that's wrong. Usually there's a sequence that you want to do this with. You want to build your reference planes first, your muscles second, and your skin last. So it's going to be reference planes, parameters, and then your form. And we're going to dive into that. All right, so let's get into Revit. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a brand new family. And the way you'll do this is basically going up to the big R and saying new family. And what it's going to do is it's going to give you a couple different options, different templates to pick from. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start out building a furniture family. So I'm going to go to furniture and say open. And this is just a blank furniture family template. And what I need to do is start actually thinking about what I want. So in this simple example, I'm just going to build an ottoman just for those that aren't super familiar with this environment. And it'll go, trust me, it'll get more complex as we go. But just to start off simple here. So again, to start off, what do I want? I want to build my bones first. So I'm going to start with my reference planes. And so under the Create tab, right up here, you get reference planes. And I'm going to go ahead and start dropping some reference planes. This is going to be the width for my ottoman. And what I want to do is I want these to be constrained equally. So I'm placing the dimension string in here, and I'm going to hit the equal button. Okay? And then I'm going to put in another dimension. And you can use your shortcut DI. And I'm going to put in width. And this is going to be our first parameter. Okay? So far, this is not parametrics. It's just some reference planes with the dimension string. Now, I can update this information, but it's not going to be parametric. So what I want to do is click on the dimension string, and I'm going to go to this label and say add a parameter. And this is going to be our width parameter. And for this one, I'm going to make it type-driven. And notice that there's a type of parameter automatically associated. Since I picked a dimension, it knows that it's going to be a length parameter. And then I'm going to group the parameter under something. It's just basically a hierarchy organization of the properties of that family when you bring it into the project. So dimensions is good. I'm going to stick with that, and I'll say OK. And you see I now have my first parameter. Okay, so I have my bones, and I have my muscle. And you can see if I pick on the parameter, I can update that. So as I'm changing these, it's updating the reference planes, right? So bones, muscle, but I don't have my skin yet. That's okay. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to start to think about the depth. I want to be able to have width by depth, so I'm going to put in another reference plane. And I'm going to put one on both sides here. And again, DI, I'm going to dimension these guys, hit the equals button, equal constrains them. And then I'm going to put in a parameter called depth. So I'm going to grab this dimension string and add a parameter. We'll call this depth. I see some questions coming in here. Let me finish this and we'll look at some of these questions you guys have. So we have width by depth, 4 feet. Okay. And then finally what I'm going to do is I'm going to create the form. And to do this, I'm going to go to the Create tab and say Extrusion. And what I usually like to do is I usually like to go just a little bit outside the reference plane. Now I'll show you, you can, if you want, drop it right on top of these, and you can kind of walk these. That's what you want to do, and that's what constrains your form to the reference plane. That's one way to do it. The other way is to actually drop it just a little bit outside. And you can use the Align tool. And I can align lock these as well. So this just kind of, as you start dealing with more reference planes and more geometry starts getting really complicated. So this just kind of definitively says, this is what I want to constrain it to. So I'll hit Finish. And just to show you, this is my ottoman that I started building. And in here, if I flex this, you can see that the muscle is flexing the skin, right? So the reference plane, the bones, the parameter being the muscle, and then the ottoman, the form being the skin, is updating. So I'm going to look at I got a few questions in here. It says, I would like to go further into why creating reference planes first. I have made many families, and usually I use planes somewhere in the middle. I have seen any adverse effects, and how do reference planes different than reference line? So I'll answer both of those. Basically, you can constrain your form using just parameters and the form. The challenge you will notice is that it starts breaking a lot of times. And so the bones, the reference planes, really give you another ability of being able to drive multiple pieces of geometry. So rather than just having this one edge controlled by that reference plane, I can have multiple forms, say, that stack on top of this. Maybe I have a little foot pedestal underneath the ottoman, and so I can associate that that foot to the reference plane as well as the edge of the ottoman. And so that gives you the ability to associate multiple elements to the reference plane. The other question was, what's the difference between a reference plane and a reference line? That's a really good question. Reference planes are going to be used more for linear commands where you're trying to flex things in a linear fashion. A reference line is going to be when you're dealing more with angles. And so if I have a reference line, that's going to drive an angle. And what I can do is I can associate geometry to that reference line, and it'll drive the angle of it. So that's kind of the difference between using a reference plane and a reference reference line and a reference plane. How do you add the parameter? Once I click the dimension string, I don't see the option to add a parameter. So the way I did that was I put in a dimension. You click on the dimension string, and right here under label, this is where you get to add the parameter. And that's what you can put in. Okay, so all really good questions. And I do, by the way, encourage questions in these. So I like interaction. Interaction's good. All right. So right now we have a parametric ottoman, and I want to take just a quick break, and I want to give you guys an opportunity to answer a question. So we're going to have just a little bit of fun here. I want to know if you guys know why Revit is called Revit. So I'm going to drop that in the menu there. I know some of you guys are, I think Oz is attending virtually watching TV. That's okay if you can't answer, but other of you that are able to answer, go ahead and answer that poll. And we'll launch that. So the question is why is Revit called Revit? It has a lot of horsepower to rev up. It allows you to revert back and forth to drawings easily. It stands for revise instantly. The name SketchUp was already taken. We'll let these tally up here. All right. So 3% of you said it has a lot of horsepower. 14% says it allows you to revert back and forth to drawings easily. 78% said it stands for revise instantly. And 6% said the name SketchUp is already taken. That's good. By sizing up. So the 78% is correct. It stands for revise instantly. So good job, guys. Got that one, at least most of you. And we'll have another poll here in just a little bit. All right. So we're going to continue trucking here with our family. And what I want to do is start showing you how you can actually start associating other parameters in here as well. Let's see. I'm going to go ahead and close that. Okay. So there's some other parameters that I want to show as well. First off, you can do a lot of things with Revit. I mean, a lot of things with these families. So far, we're showing how to constrain things with the length parameters. But notice if I pick my ottoman here, I have this material parameter. Okay. So what I can do is I can go ahead and add a parameter this way. So the difference, note, I can click on this dimension string to add a length parameter. If I click on this, if I go to the properties of that geometry, I can add a material parameter. So hitting this little radio button, I'm going to say add a parameter, and I'm going to call this material. And what this lets us do is it lets us associate a parameter when it's in the project environment for a material. So that way you can change it once you're in there. And this one I'm going to make type driven as well. I'll say OK. All right. So we have now a material parameter. And what I want to do is now start looking at how these are working. So if I go to the types, notice that I'm already starting to have some parameters in here. I have my material parameter, my depth by my width. I'm going to do one more. I'm going to make one for height. So I'm going to go to the front. Note that you get these front, left, back, similar to your project environment, having different views. And so I'm going to create another reference plane here for the front. And I'm going to call this, if you guessed it, height. Make that type driven. And note that I already have this, remember before I constrained it when I was in sketch mode? I was kind of in this sketch mode and I was constraining it. What I want you to note is this time I can go ahead and just do this two ways. I can either use the align tool right here or my shortcut, reference plane align, lock this guy. The other thing I can do is I can grab this and pull this up and I can lock it as well. And note that if I change this, it's updating that family now. Okay. So let's take this a step further. What I want to do now is start showing how you can use just simple formulas for this family. Okay. And I don't want anyone's eyes glazing over or getting too nervous when we start talking about formulas. It is the lunch hour and afternoon for some of you, so hang in there. So in the types, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, right now you can see width and depth are the same. What I can do is I can say that my width is half the distance of my depth. And so with width, with depth, I'm going to say depth is width divided by 2. And do you see how this parameter right here updated? So then if I change this to 6 feet, this is going to 3. All right, and now when I apply it, you can see that the family updates. So the depth is half the distance of width. Okay. Let's say okay on that. And get a question. Tabbed over to the front view, there were no default reference planes. If you don't see them, do a zoom to fit, because I was noticing I didn't have those either, so you might have to do a zoom to fit. All right, so right now we now have a simple formula for these parameters. But basically this family, it doesn't have any type, so you're probably used to in your project that you have different types with your families. I'm going to show you how to set some of those up. So with my types, I'm going to say new type, and I'm going to say that this is a, I noticed something here. You see, this is kind of throwing me off. I'm used to seeing the width by the depth. They added this feature in 2015, so this part's free. Okay, this wasn't in the training, but I'll show you. So in here, I can actually move parameters down. So I have width by depth. It makes it a little easier to read. So I'll do new, and I'm going to say that this is a 6 foot by 3 foot family ottoman. Okay, and then I could create another one that is, let's say, a 4 foot by 2 foot. Okay, and note that when I update this, there's my 4 foot by 2 foot. There's my 6 foot by 3 foot. Okay, and it's automatically updating based on my formula that I have here. All right, and you can see those updating. Oops. Okay, pretty cool stuff. Okay, Mr. Jason has a question. It's more complex. You say you're currently doing, but I was having some issues with nested if-then state formulas earlier today, actually. Okay, maybe take that one offline. I'm going to show nested families and some ways to get around arrays here in a little bit, but we can look at that. All right, so what I want to do now is I'm going to load this into a project. Where is my Revit load into project button? You know what is funny? This happens to me during live presentations, and you'd think I'd get away from it during a webinar. No siree. Here it is, hiding. All right, there it is. Load into project. Okay. So note that I have my family. Should have named it, but I didn't. note that I have these two types, and you can see that it grows bigger or smaller, right? But I want you to note that once you have this in a project environment, you can also modify it. This is probably the way that most of you guys are used to it. And so in here I can duplicate, and I can also make a, let's say, what do I got? 6 and 4. Let's make a 5 by 2.5. So I can say 5 feet by 2 feet 6. And I'm going to change this. And note that it updates here, even when I'm in the project environment. Okay, so now I have a 5 foot by 2 foot 6. And I have those 3 different types. Okay, that is in a nutshell how you make a parametric family. Any questions about that before we go on to nested families and tagging? Give you guys a second to ask your questions. You guys got to start asking questions or I'll keep singing. How to attach a parameter to the extrusion. I don't know if I understand that question, but it's basically, oh wait, I think I know what you're asking. You're asking this guy right here, your extrusion starts and ends. So that's a good question. So like another way that I could have extruded or constrained this is rather than putting in my height parameter like this, I could select the extrusion and I could say that the extrusion end equals height. Okay, so in here what I did is I hit the little radial button and then I said equals height without my reference plane. And you see that if I hit 3 feet, it updates the extrusion. Hope that helps you. Cliche. All right, let's keep on trucking. All right, so what I want to do is show you something that most everybody, when you start building families, you're going to run into this. So I'm just going to save you the hassle and show you a way to get around it. I'm going to go ahead and minimize that one for now. Let's start a new family here using, we're going to do a louver. And I'm going to show, oh, Mark, good point. He said, should we show them reference plane namings? And I did have a note to show that. I want to make sure that I mentioned that. Thank you, Mark, for the reminder. Okay. So when you are working in this environment, I'm going to bring back my reference plane. A good practice is to name your reference plane. And so here, what I want you to note is right now this reference plane that I created does not have a name. And could leave it nameless, but I want you to note that if I try to set a work plane, specify new work plane, I get front, back, left, right. Anybody guys see top of ottoman? Because I do not. So this is one of the reasons you want to name your reference planes, and I'm glad Mark reminded me, is you can grab your reference plane, and in the name, I'm going to say top of ottoman. Hopefully that's how you spell ottoman. And when I go to create set reference plane, note that I have top of ottoman. And so I can say OK. And I can start actually creating something else. And what it'll do is it'll associate to that reference plane. Go ahead and lock these. And if we look at front, note that it is associated to the top. It didn't draw it down at the base. It drew it up here on the top of ottoman. So that's one of the reasons that you want to name your reference plane. What is the difference between strong and weak? That is a good question. One of the main differences is if you leave these as weak reference, And let me make sure I'm not lying to you. I'm going to see if I change this guy to an instance parameter because it lets me see it. Oh, it's constrained by a formula. Let's take this off just for a second. It will allow you to change it in the project environment with these little arrows. So I'm going to say with instance. And if I make it an instance parameter, you should be able to see this. So the first thing you'll note is that you can't see the arrows. Oh, you can. Strong reference plane. Oh, you know what? It lets you, do know it will allow you to align lock to those reference planes. Like you can highlight them or see them when you have something else that you want to align lock. I notice sometimes if I can't flex this thing individually, setting those to strong sometimes lets me. And let me see, I can't see my reference plane if I align, but if I come in and I set this to strong, load it in, I think it helps. No, maybe not. Someone knows the answer, let me know. So describe defines origin property. Yep, so that is defines origin is going to be the center, this guy right here. So that is going to define the origin of your family based on these crosshairs here. So you'll notice that if I place this in my project, that it is placing it in the center. See that? That's the origin right there. Okay, I'm going to keep on trucking here because I got some other stuff to show you. Okay, so what I want to do is show you how you can use nested families to overcome some modeling challenges. Okay, so we're going to start a new louver family. And for this one, I'm just going to use a window category. And there's a challenge that you start running into when you use these extrusion. I'll show you the problem. And some of you already know. Some of you already know where I'm going. All right. So if I have a louver, so I know some of you are saying, where's my reference planes? Right-click, zoom to fit. There's your front. For some reason, it wasn't finding it. And what I want to do is I'm going to align lock this louver, okay? And I'm going to array this up, okay? Let's do that. And let's just say 15. Whoop, not 15 feet, 15 count. Okay. Now what I want you to note the problem here. Okay, I've arrayed this. And I believe this already has a width. It does. What I want you to note is when I change the width of this guy. See this? It's no bueno. Doesn't work. Okay? Breaks. This is the problem. So a workaround for this that you can use to use nested families to overcome some of these challenges. Back up. You start a new family. So what I'm going to do is start new family. And this one I'm just going to use a generic model. Generic model and specialty equipment get overused and abused the most, by the way. A little piece of information for you. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create this louver in here. Okay. All right. So I have this nested family right here, and I'm going to create some parameters. I want to put in a reference plane here, and I'm going to equally space these guys, equal, put in the width, and let's call this one louver width. You guys doing good? Hope you're doing good on the line. Okay, what I'm going to do, constrain this. Okay, you can see now, make sure it's constrained, align lock both sides, 2 feet, we're good. Okay, just going to save this so we know which family this is. So it's a good idea to save your families. Louver. Yes. Okay, so I'm going to load this back into my louver family and drop this in. And what I want you to note is what I can do is I can grab this louver family. I'm going to put it up here. And I can associate the parameters from this nested louver family to this overall opening family that's going to house these louvers. And so if I go to the properties, notice here's the parameter I created called louver width. If I click on this and I associate that to width, see that? Pretty cool stuff. And then so I'm going to line lock this just to the middle as well. And now if I array this, go to this side, and give it a count. Okay. And I go to here, and I flex my width. Notice that? It's pretty cool. That is how you can get over issues of geometry with arrays. It is where it's specifically associated to. And to take this one step further, if I take this guy, I can also put in a formula for this array count. So if I click on this array, there it is. See if I can tab and get to it. Come on. There we go. And I can associate a parameter to that. And I can call this louver count. And what I will do is I will say that the height, oh, I forgot one more. I'm going to do this one quick. Say, I'm going to put in a reference plane here. And we're going to call this, actually that's not what I want. I want the distance from that one to that one. Got another survey coming up, so you guys hold in there. I got another question for you. Going to call this louver instance height. Okay. And what I can do is I can say that my louver count equals height divided by my louver instance height. You see that? I went from 15 to 12. And so what it's doing is it's associating to this height. It looks like I need to take out 1. So I could actually come in here and say, you know what, I like that, but it's too high. I'm going to do that -1. Say OK. See, it takes it out. Now watch this. You ready for this magic? We go height. We say 6. Updates to 17. And then that is how your louver can go an array up. And it also deals with the issue of changing your width, being able to update that information without breaking. Okay. All right. because of time, Jason, I think we're going to take yours offline if that's okay. And I want to get into tagging. Before we do that, I got another question for you guys. Okay, launch. Little Q&A. Are the parameters the bones, the muscle, or the skin? Go ahead and answer. Hope you guys get that one. Otherwise, I'm not doing my job. Or you guys are watching CNN while trying to listen to this video. One of the two. Are the parameters the bones, the muscle, or the skin? Okay. Some of you said bones. I'm disappointed. It's okay. We won't shame you. The answer is muscles. All right. So good job of you guys that chose muscle. All right. Lastly, I want to show tagging. And we have a gift at the end for some of you, just so you know. So stick around to the end because you may get a chance to win something. Okay. Lastly, I want to talk about tagging and how you can start annotating your families. Getting way too much stuff open. Close. Okay, we're going to edit our old ottoman here. Okay. What I want to do is I want to show you how to start tagging information with shared parameters. Now, shared parameters, I think this is always helpful. We go to our project, image, we try to add a parameter. This is what's super helpful. Let me blow this up so you can see this. Project parameters can appear in schedules, but not in tags. Okay? Shared parameters can be shared by multiple projects and families, exported to ODBC, and appear in schedules and tags. Okay? So the thing with Revit is it's a building information modeling tool, and so you can put data in a lot of this stuff. We're already showing how you can put in width, depth, material, things like that into this. So we're assigning information to the geometry. But if you want to tag that geometry, then you need to create a shared parameter. So we're going to show how to do that. All right? So in this family, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a parameter. Okay? And I can just add a project or a family parameter, or I could add a shared parameter. What I'm going to do is create a shared parameter. And what I can do is I can create new parameters in a shared parameter file. Basically, shared parameter file is a TXT file that has parameters and groupings of parameters in there. Okay? So in here, I'm going to go ahead and edit this shared parameter. And I want to show you can create new groups. Call this important group. Call it whatever you want. Check with your BIM manager first. Or you can say new parameter. And I can associate where that parameter, which group it falls into. Okay? So here's my grouping, important group. I'm going to say new parameter. This parameter is something really important. Okay? We're going to give this some text. So I'm grouping it. It's going to basically I'm telling it how is the parameter going to be used. Is it text-based? Is it an integer? Is it a number? Is it a length? So you want to be able to define those things when you're creating these parameters. So this one I'm going to say text, something really important. And I'm going to say OK. And I still have to pick it. I don't like how Revit does this. Like I just created the parameter. Just let me pick it. So I'm going to pick it. So I go to my important group. And there's my something really important parameter. We're going to make that instance-based. We'll say OK. And important. Okay? Something about that. Okay? And I'm going to load that into my project. I'll overwrite this. Okay? What I want you to note is in my properties, I have this parameter. Okay? Something really important. and here's the value, important, okay? But I can't tag that information. Okay, so I'm going to hit tag, and I'm going to tag this. Well, right now, this is not what I want. I want to be able to report my parameter value. Okay, so I'm going to go into that tag and say edit family, and in here I'm going to swap this out for my newly created parameter. Okay, what I'm doing is I'm navigating into the shared parameter. Here's my group, something really important parameter. And I'm going to drop that over. I'll remove the old one. Something really important parameter is in. In here you can do some other things, like you can put in a suffix, you can put in a prefix. So yeah, I'm not going to try to think of a suffix right now. For the sample value, I can say practice or whatever. And I'll say OK. Okay, so it's just a sample value. And I'm going to load this into my project. Now, most people, it worked. So you can see here that I have this tag now, and we can make it, a little cleaner for those that are very fancy, uptight designers on the phone. You're like, dude, the line's overlapping the text. Make it look good. All right. So here, I can take that tag, and you can see that it's now representing that shared parameter and the value. So put whatever I want in here, and it populates it. Okay. And the nice thing about this is being able not only to graphically, or excuse me, not only to show this information in a schedule, but also being able to show it now as text in your floor plan. So we're now representing that data from the family in your project environment. Okay. Cool. All right. So with that, I would like to answer any questions you guys have, and then we're going to have a little giveaway towards the end. All right, well, we're waiting for those. Thanks, Heath. Answered bones to see if I was on my toes. I like it. Having trouble getting family to flex symmetrically. Make sure, Emily, that you are using the equal. You got to have the equal for both sides. So if you don't have the equal, it will flex asymmetrically. Okay. And if you have any questions too that you guys want me to look at offline, I would be more than happy and willing to set up like a go-to to chat with you guys individually on looking at some of your content. I know it's going kind of fast too for obviously it's presentational format, so it's a little hard. It's not necessarily a lab, but I do welcome you guys following along if you're able to. So real quick, what I want to do is talk about some giveaway stuff and kind of what we're doing. I appreciate you guys sticking on the line. Basically, what I want to do is just talk about like if there's an opportunity that any of you guys would like private training. These are trainings that I've done for other firms here in Colorado and in Nebraska and California. So this is some of the trainings that we can set up. If there's one that you guys want to do on families at your firm, that's something we could set up for sure. Other things that we do is helping firms like set up a template, set up the Revit families, form rationalization, design assist, things like that. We also help with BIM implementation, content, all of that stuff, optimizing documentation in your project. We offer a membership to the lab. It's basically you pay fee. It's an hourly rate, and then you can have us as a resource at your firm for being able to execute some of this stuff specifically. And this is an endorsement that I know we have Oz on the line. I want to personally thank Andy and Oz for really communicating the value of what we're doing. So just saying that there's huge return on investment for a lot of these services. So I want to thank Oz and thank all of our other clients that are already using us, but also wanted to say, you know, it's an opportunity if you guys want to team up or partner up on some stuff, we'd like to do that as well. Feel free to reach out, and you guys have a great day.